People walk through life thinking they've got it all figured out. They follow their little routines, stick to their little plans, tell themselves, I know where I'm going. Oh, but life has a way of laughing at plans. See, people don't like to admit it, but they don't really run the show. They think they do. They wake up, pick their clothes, choose their meals, decide which mask to wear for the day. But the big stuff, the real, life-altering, shake you to your core kind of moments, those aren't up to them. Those get hand-delivered. People like to think they'll be ready when the big moment comes, that when the universe knocks on their door, they'll open it with a smile and step right into their destiny. Oh, but that's not how it works, is it? No, no, no. The call doesn't come when you're standing tall, feeling strong, prepared for the next chapter. It doesn't come when your bank account looks good, when your relationships are steady, when you feel like everything's under control. It comes when you're in the middle of the mess, when you're uncertain, when you feel weak, lost, confused. That's when it arrives, right when you think you're in no shape to handle it. Because that's the trick, isn't it? People believe they need to be ready to change, but real change, it doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't wait for you to feel brave, to have all the answers, to be in the right headspace. No, no. It kicks the door down, flips the table, rips the rug right out from under you and says, move. And you stand there blinking, thinking, now? You want me to do this now? Like you've got a say in it? Like you get to pick the timing? That's the problem. People think they're in charge. They walk around with their little plans, mapping out their future, thinking they're the ones pulling the strings. But when the real moment comes, oh, they realize real quick they were never in control. They were just along for the ride, pretending. And when the road suddenly turns, when the whole thing takes a sharp left, that's when they panic. Because they didn't plan for this. They didn't schedule a complete shake-up of their reality. But that's how it works. It comes when you're not ready, because if you were ready, you wouldn't need it. You wouldn't have to be pushed. You wouldn't have to be yanked out of your comfort zone, forced to see things differently. That's why the timing always feels wrong. Because real change doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't come softly, gently knocking, waiting for an invitation. It comes like a storm, a wrecking ball. It tears through the life you built. Not because it's cruel, but because that life, it's too small for you now. But people, oh, they don't see it that way. No, they see destruction, they see chaos, they see everything they've worked for getting torn apart, and they scream, why now? Why like this? Like there was ever going to be a way that felt safe. Like you could ever grow without being broken first. But that's what people want, isn't it? They want transformation without the pain. They want to change without losing anything. They want to become something new without letting go of the old. But it doesn't work that way. It never has. The old version of you, it has to go, it has to die. And that's what makes people hesitate. That's what makes them fight the timing, resist the pull, try to buy themselves more time. Because deep down they know they're being called to step into something bigger. But that means stepping out of the little world they've built for themselves. And that's terrifying. Because even if their current life is painful, at least it's familiar. At least they understand it. So they stall, they ignore the signs, they pretend They don't see the writing on the wall, and they think, if I just wait a little longer, maybe it'll pass. Maybe I won't have to do this. Maybe things will go back to normal. But normal is gone. The moment the call comes, the old world starts dissolving. You can fight it, sure. You can dig in your heels, cling to the past, scream that you're not ready, but that's not going to stop the shift. It's already happening. And the longer you resist, the harder it gets, the more painful, because the call doesn't get quieter. It doesn't fade away. It grows, it echoes, it rattles your bones, seeps into your thoughts, follows you wherever you go until eventually you realize it was never about being ready. It was about listening. It was about trusting. It was about stepping forward, even though your hands are shaking, even though your voice is unsteady, even though every part of you is screaming to turn back. Because that's the test. That's the moment. And most people, they fail. Not because they're not capable, not because they're not worthy, but because they waste time waiting for something that was never coming. They wait for a feeling of certainty that will never exist. They wait to feel ready instead of realizing that readiness was never the point. The point was to move, whether they felt like it or not. Because the ones who make it, the ones who step into something greater, they weren't ready when they started. They just didn't. People have this funny little habit. They think if they just close their eyes, pretend not to notice, ignore the signs staring them right in the face, then maybe, just maybe, the universe will change its mind. That if they sit still long enough, if they refuse to make a move, everything will somehow stay the same. But that's not how it works, is it? No. See, life doesn't ask for your permission to move forward. It doesn't wait for you to feel comfortable, to be mentally prepared, to give it a polite little nod and say, all right, I'm ready now. No, life just moves, with or without you. And if you think you can hold it back, if you think you can slow it down just because you're scared, well, you're in for a nasty little surprise. Because here's the thing, there are moments when you know something's coming. You can feel it, like static in the air before a storm, like a shift in the wind that makes your skin prickle. You know it, but instead of walking toward it, instead of stepping into it, you freeze. You pretend you don't see what's right in front of you. Because if you acknowledge it, that means you have to do something about it. And doing something? Oh, that's terrifying. So people tell themselves little stories. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe if I just wait a little longer, things will work themselves out. They convince themselves that their hesitation is wisdom, that standing still is strategy, that avoidance is patience. But deep down, they know. They know they're being told to move, to leave, to step forward into something bigger. They just don't want to listen, because listening means change. And change, oh, that's messy. That's uncomfortable. That means letting go of what's familiar. And people love the familiar, even when it's hurting them, even when it's suffocating them. They'll cling to it like a lifeline, pretending it's keeping them safe, when really, it's the thing holding them back. But the universe, it doesn't just ask you to move. No. It starts pushing. It starts making things uncomfortable. The people around you start acting different. The things that used to make you happy don't feel the same anymore. The life you've built, oh, it starts feeling too small, too tight, like a pair of shoes you've outgrown. And you know what that means. You know it's time. But still, people resist. They hold on. They tell themselves it's just a phase, just a rough patch, just something that'll pass if they wait long enough. And so they stay. in jobs that drain them, in relationships that suffocate them, in places that don't fit them anymore, and they wonder why they feel stuck, why nothing excites them, why they wake up every morning with that dull little ache in their chest, that feeling that something's missing, because something is missing. They were meant to move, and they didn't. They were meant to grow, and they chose comfort instead. They were given signs, obvious signs, and they ignored them. They chose fear over faith, and now they're paying the price. But the universe? Oh, it doesn't give up that easy. It starts turning up the heat. It makes staying the same more painful than changing. It makes the walls close in, makes the discomfort unbearable, makes the wrong things so obvious that you can't ignore them anymore. And even then, some people still refuse to move, still refuse to trust, still refuse to let go of the very thing that's keeping them from becoming who they were meant to be. And that's when life stops waiting. That's when it stops being gentle. That's when things start falling apart. The job, gone. The relationship, shattered. The comfort zone, oh, it crumbles right beneath their feet. Not because the universe is cruel, not because life enjoys taking things away, but because they wouldn't move on their own. So now they have to. People think these moments are punishments. They think they're bad luck, misfortune, some kind of cruel joke, but they're not. They're just the consequences of refusing to listen. The price of ignoring the signs for too long. The reality of what happens when you choose fear over faith. And in that moment, they have a choice. They can fight it, cling to the rubble, try to rebuild the life that was never meant to last, or they can finally do what they should have done from the start. They can listen, they can trust, they can step forward, even if their hands are shaking, even if their voice is unsteady, even if every part of them is screaming to turn back, because now they understand. Now they know the call was never going to wait for them to be ready. It was only ever going to wait for them to listen. People have this funny way of believing they're in control, that they can plan every little detail, predict every twist, prepare for every turn. But life? Oh, life doesn't play by their rules. No. Life plays its game, and it plays to win. See, people walk around thinking they're steering the ship, like they've got this grand map of their future, neatly drawn out, every step carefully calculated. They tell themselves that if they just work hard enough, if they just follow the plan, they'll end up exactly where they want to be. But what they don't realize, what they never seem to understand, is that the plan, it was never theirs to begin with. You ever notice how things seem to fall apart right when you're sure you've got it all figured out? How the moment you start feeling comfortable, the ground starts shifting underneath you? That's not coincidence. That's not bad luck. That's life reminding you who's really in charge. Because you don't get to decide when you've arrived. You don't get to decide when you're done growing. You don't get to say, okay, this is it, I've made it. No, that's not how this works. See, people have this idea that progress is a straight line, that it's a ladder, step by step, always moving up, always predictable. But it's not. It's a storm, it's chaos. It's a game where the rules change the second you think you understand them. One day, you're at the top of the world. The next, you're crawling out of the dirt, wondering how the hell you got there. And that's the part nobody likes. The fall, the reset, the moments when everything you built, everything you thought was secure, suddenly slips right through your fingers. And oh, how they panic, how they scramble trying to hold on to something, anything that feels familiar. They cry out, "Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong?" As if this is some kind of punishment, as if they're being punished for wanting a good life. But that's the joke, isn't it? They think they're being punished when really they're just being redirected because the life they wanted, it was too small. The dream they had, it wasn't big enough. So life does what it always does when people refuse to move on their own. It moves for them. But people don't like being pushed. Oh no, they fight it. They resist. They dig in their heels trying to hold on to something that was never meant to last. They spend all their energy trying to rebuild something that's already been burned to the ground. And they wonder why they feel stuck, why nothing's working, why every door they knock on stays shut. They don't realize they were never supposed to go back. See, life has a way of closing doors you weren't meant to walk through, and when it does, you've got two choices. You can stand there, pounding on that locked door, begging for something that isn't yours anymore, or you can turn around. You can open your eyes and realize there's something bigger waiting for you, something you never would have seen if you hadn't been forced to look. But that's the problem, isn't it? People don't like to look. They don't like change. They don't like the unknown. They'd rather stay in a burning house than step into the dark, because at least the flames are familiar. They don't realize the dark, that's where the new doors are. That's where the real game begins. But they're too busy trying to fix what's already gone to see it. And that's the part where they break. Where they sit there exhausted, defeated, finally ready to admit what they should have known all along, that they were never in control, that the plan, it was never theirs, that the moment they stop fighting what's already written, that's when the real magic happens. But by the time they figure that out, the game has already changed again. Because life, oh, it never stops moving. It never stops pushing, and if you're not careful, it'll leave you behind. People walk around thinking they've got time, that they can wait, that life is patient, that they'll get to it when they're ready. But life, oh, life doesn't wait. It doesn't send a polite little reminder. It doesn't tap you on the shoulder and ask, "Excuse me, are you ready now?" No. It rips things away. It shoves you forward. It demands you move, whether you want to or not. And the ones who don't, the ones who think they can sit back and stay the same forever, well, let's just say life has a way of dealing with them too. See, people get comfortable. They settle in, wrap themselves up in the illusion of stability, telling themselves this is good enough. Good enough? That's funny. As if life was designed for people to just exist. As if they were placed here to do the same thing every day, to wake up, go through the motions, and call it a life. But deep down, they know. Oh, they know. There's something pulling at them, something whispering late at night, something scratching at the walls of their mind, saying, this isn't it. There's more. You know there's more. But they ignore it. They bury it under distractions, under routines, under excuses, pretending they don't hear it. Because change is scary. But here's where it gets interesting. Life doesn't care if you're scared. It doesn't care if you're not ready. It doesn't care if you've got a 5-year plan, if you've got your whole future mapped out in neat little steps. It will tear it apart. It will throw a curveball so hard it knocks the breath out of your lungs. And then it watches. It watches what you do next. Because that's the test, isn't it? That's where most people fail. They waste time crying over the pieces, trying to glue together something that was never meant to stay whole. They stand there gripping the scraps of a life that's already gone instead of looking around and realizing there's something else waiting for them, something bigger. But people don't see it. They don't want to, because seeing it means admitting they've been wrong. That all the time they spent clinging to the familiar, they could have been moving forward. But no, they don't move. They stall. They hesitate. They try to make deals with life as if it takes bribes. They beg for more time, just a little more time, just a little longer in the comfort of the known. But life doesn't negotiate. It doesn't do extensions. It doesn't care about your fears, your doubts, your excuses. When it's time, it's time. And if you refuse to step forward willingly, life will shove you hard. That's when people start saying things like, why is this happening to me? Oh, that's my favorite part. They act like they're victims, like they're being punished, like life has something against them personally. No. Life isn't punishing them. Life is saving them from themselves, from their own hesitation, from their own self-doubt. Because if it didn't push them, they'd never move. But the ones who get it, the ones who listen, they don't waste time complaining. They don't waste time trying to hold on to what's already been taken away. No. They adapt. They learn to read the signs, to recognize when life is telling them, hey, it's time. And instead of fighting it, instead of resisting, they go. They step into the unknown, into the discomfort, into the fire. And that's where things really start happening. Because that's the trick, isn't it? That's what nobody wants to admit. The ones who make it, the ones who win, they're not the ones who had the perfect plan. They're not the ones who never struggled. They're the ones who moved, the ones who listened, the ones who understood that when life takes something away, when it closes a door, it's not the end, it's the beginning. But most people, most people never see that. They're too busy looking back to realize what's ahead. People like to believe they're in control, that their hands are on the wheel, that they're making all the choices. It's a nice little fantasy, isn't it? Helps them sleep at night. But reality? Reality doesn't work that way. Reality is a game where the rules change when you're not looking, where the pieces move on their own, where you think you've got it all figured out until life flips the board and laughs in your face. See, people think if they try hard enough, if they plan every little detail, if they hold on tight enough, they can force things to go their way. But that's the funny part. The tighter they hold on, the more things slip through their fingers, like sand, like water, like something that was never meant to be theirs in the first place. But they fight it. They fight it so hard. They scream, they beg, they ask why Why is this happening? Why can't things just stay the way they were? Why do things have to change? And that's the part that really makes me laugh, because deep down, they already know the answer. They know. But they don't want to admit it, because admitting it means facing the truth. And the truth is that some things, some people are meant to go. Some doors are meant to close. Some paths are meant to be blocked off. Not because life is cruel, not because the universe enjoys watching them suffer, but because they were never supposed to be there in the first place. Because holding on to something that's already slipping away, that's the real suffering. But people don't see it that way. No, no, no. They see it as loss, as failure, as punishment. And that's when the panic sets in. That's when they start grasping at straws, making desperate moves, trying to stitch things back together when they should be letting them fall apart. That's when they start thinking, maybe if I just try harder, maybe if I just hold on a little longer, maybe if I just pretend everything's fine, it will be. But life doesn't work like that. Life doesn't reward desperation. It doesn't give prizes for refusing to let go. No, life rewards those who know when to walk away, who know when to stop fighting a battle that was lost before it even began, who understand that when things start slipping through your fingers, maybe, just maybe, you're not supposed to catch them. And that's the lesson most people never learn. They think strength is about holding on, about endurance, about grit. But real strength is knowing when to release, when to stand up, dust yourself off and say, all right, I get it. This wasn't for me. Time to move on. But that's not the kind of strength they teach, is it? That's not the kind of strength people admire. No, they admire the fighters, the ones who claw and scratch and bleed to keep something that's already halfway out the door. The ones who mistake suffering for strength. Oh, but the ones who see it, the ones who finally get it, they look around and realize they were never losing anything. They were being redirected, they were being freed, they were being pushed towards something else, something better. But they couldn't see it while they were too busy looking back. Funny how that works, isn't it? People think they have time. They wake up, brush their teeth, go about their day like they've got a million more waiting for them. They think tomorrow is guaranteed, that next week will come knocking like a polite little guest, waiting for an invitation. But that's the joke, isn't it? Time doesn't wait. It doesn't care about your plans, your dreams, your to-do lists. One moment you're here, then, well, that's the part nobody likes to talk about. See, people waste time like they've got an unlimited supply. They sit around, scrolling through their little screens, filling their heads with nonsense, watching other people live while they just exist. They say, I'll start tomorrow, I'll fix things later, I'll do it when the time is right. But the time is never right. The clock is always ticking, and they don't even hear it. It's funny, really, the way they act like they're in control, like they have a say in how much time they get. And then, one day, it hits them, like a slap across the face, like cold water in the middle of a dream. Boom, just like that, something happens, a phone call in the middle of the night, a doctor with a look in his eye that says more than his words ever could, a moment, a single, tiny moment that flips everything upside down, and suddenly all that time they thought they had, it's gone, vanished. like smoke slipping through their fingers, and now they're awake. Now they see. But it's too late, isn't it? Because that's the real tragedy. Not that time runs out. No, that part's inevitable. The real tragedy is how much of it people waste. How they trade their minutes, their hours, their lives for things that don't even matter, for people who don't even care. They run in circles, chasing approval, chasing status, chasing things they can't take with them when it's all over. They let their days slip by, telling themselves that someday they'll do what they really want. But someday doesn't exist. It's just a lie people tell themselves to feel better about wasting the only thing they can never get back. They wait for a sign, for the stars to align, for some magical moment when everything is perfect. But perfection is just another joke. There's no perfect moment. No flashing neon sign that says, now is the time. There's just now, and what they do with it. But they don't want to hear that. They'd rather pretend they've got all the time in the world. They'd rather put things off, tell themselves they'll start later. They think that if they just ignore the ticking clock, it won't run out. That's the punchline. That's the biggest joke of all. Because time doesn't care. It doesn't wait. It doesn't slow down just because someone needs a little longer to figure things out. And when it's over, when they're out of chances, when they look back at all the days they let slip through their fingers, they won't be laughing anymore. No. They'll be asking themselves why. Why didn't I start sooner? Why did I wait? Why did I waste so much time on things that never really mattered? But by then the answer won't matter, because the joke will already be over.